It's just me trying to be open to what is God want me to say this weekend. So it's always like, all right, God, come Holy Spirit, what do you want me to say? And then these little pieces will start, this puzzle will start to come together in my mind. And I know those are the best homilies because I know they didn't come from me. It's the process of preparing a homily. My process is generally the same every week, usually Monday. Of course, I work, Father Chris is off Monday, so it'd be a little different. But Mondays, I look at the readings for the weekend, and then it's kind of like letting it soak. I let it start to soak in my brain and my soul. And I might read some commentaries, and I might watch a couple video clips about, somebody has said something, or what has Bishop Barron said, or what has this church father said about this particular reading, Brant Petrie. So basically all my different sources, and then it's like you take all this information, then you just sort of let it sit. And then in my normal everyday prayer life, which is usually, I get up really early in the morning, and somewhere between 3 and 5, from 3 to 5, I'm praying. And that can be a lot of different places. That can be riding my bike. It could be doing the steps at the football stadium. But I'm reflecting on those readings, and I'm trying to be open. It's not like me trying to figure out what's the best. It's just me trying to be open to what is God want me to say this weekend. So it's always like, all right, God, come Holy Spirit, what do you want me to say? And then these little pieces will start, this puzzle will start to come together in my mind. And I know those are the best homilies because I know they didn't come from me. They're not my homilies, and they just start to come together, and hopefully they work. I've said this in homilies before, when I tried to fight it and tried to just do it myself, it's always more difficult. They're not as good. It's just easier if I just say, all right, Lord, what do you want me to say? And then just let it come. So that's pretty much, so as the week goes, that happens. And then I'll start to, cultivate that, start to put that together, those little puzzle pieces. And then, Friday is my day off. So usually Friday, I get out of Bowling Green. I usually go somewhere in maybe Southern Illinois to work on the farms where I deer hunt. I'll go home, visit family. So I get a lot of windshield time. I get to drive. So that's when I'm putting that homily together, and I'm giving it in my mind. 10 minutes here, and then I'll drive, and then 10 minutes, because, I'm usually a 5 to 10 minute homilist. So I'm putting that homily together. So oftentimes when I get to Saturday evening Mass, I've given it 2 or 3 times already in my mind, maybe more. And then lots of times my last sort of trial run will be during confessions. We have confessions Saturday from 2 to 3:30. So when there's a little bit of downtime in between here and confessions, I'll run it through my mind one more time, and it should be good to go by Saturday. I could still tweak it, Sunday morning if I'll review in my mind, okay, this is what went on Saturday. And I could have done this a little bit better, or this was a little bit better here. And so then I'll tweak it a little bit for Sunday. But that's pretty much my process every week. So, I used to always write my homilies because, again, I wrote them for years because I was always nervous about, I was afraid I would forget something, or I would just have stage fright and I would freeze up. Lots of different fears. So it was like the safe thing was, and they always taught you in seminary to write it. For lots of different reasons. One of them was maybe you didn't feel well, maybe you got sick, and you still had to give a homily, and you didn't have the energy, and so there it was written. You could still give it. So, but so far I've been pretty lucky. I go through it. There it is, and it's good to go. So, and it also gives me an opportunity to be open to the Spirit, sort of in the last minute, because there's sometimes when something will sort of develop, but then at the last minute something else will come, and I'll be like, oh, well, that's even better, and we'll do it that way. So. Yeah, that's what I like.
Have you ever been in one of those situations, like you thought, like in Hopkinsville, this happened to me one weekend. I'd been there 3 or 4 months, and I thought the deacon was supposed to preach that weekend. And the deacon shows up, and I said, "You ready to preach?" He goes, "No." I said, "I thought he was joking." And so there at the very last minute, luckily, you've been reading the readings throughout the week, through your prayers, you know what to say, you're able to come up with something there on the spot, and
Yeah.
sometimes that happens as well. But I would say, my process is very similar to yours. I do, we went to the Benedictine Abbey, St. Meinrad, for formation. So they taught us the Lectio Divina, the importance of reading the scriptures and letting them soak and taking them in and kind of digesting them, so to speak. And then, throughout the week, I'll look at different commentaries. I'll, look what the church father said. And then again, like you said, I'll let, God, the Holy Spirit just say, Lord, what do you want me to say? And usually something within my Lectio Divina throughout the week, because I'll read the readings just about every single day. Something will stick out to me. I'm like, that's a good point, or that's a good launch point, or that's maybe something you can land on. Typically for me, I typically write out my homilies and use a script, but I have at times not. And I found that I think I can be an effective preacher through both means. I guess I'm more comfortable with the script. Like you said, it's right there. So, and I tend to think some of my best homilies are come when they're written down, but other people have told me in the past, no, when you don't use the text, you're just, you're walking around, you're engaging people. Those are the best homilies, Father. So, again, listening to people who are around you, listen, maybe that's God's way of telling me maybe you should do that more often. So,
well, you got to be comfortable with it too. It takes time. I didn't do it for a long time. So, I don't think there's any pressure to have to, just get up there and speak. But,
another added challenge that, we have here at St. Joe's is writing homilies in Spanish, and coming up because you have a whole different cultural context. And so the story that you give at the 10 o'clock Mass, it may not work for the noon Mass, it's in Spanish. And so you're constantly reworking with that. And then, with us not being native Spanish speakers, we're constantly, okay, what's the right word or what's the right context? So that's another kind of added challenge that we have.
I feel bad every time I preach in Spanish because I'm like, this is, not that you don't give it your best, but it's you generally very synthesized to what I might normally say because, again, it's going to take me a lot longer to read it. I do have to write them in Spanish because I can't speak freely. So, I always feel like apologizing to the Hispanic parish population every time. Like, I wish I could just do like I do when I speak English, but I can't. So, this is the best that I can do. But we practice. I practice. I go over the hard words before Mass. With the Hispanic minister, with some of the parishioners, there'll be a word and I'll say, how do you say this word? Make sure I get the word right. But it's not that you still don't go through the process and you still don't write. I've been working on my Spanish homily this weekend all week. And but now that's pretty much the process.